Hey everybody, welcome to the channel and thanks for checking out the channel. It's called Ham Radio Dude, and today we're going to take a look at the T-Deck Plus for Mesh-tastic use. And this device is by LilyGo. About $90 US gets you this device. And I'm going to just talk about some of my experiences with this device. We're going to talk about the modifications that I've made to make this a little bit more user-friendly and prevent some accidents from occurring. The first thing I want to just test out today is we are about 500 yards from my Station G2 that's at the house, and I just want to go ahead and determine on how well the signal is to the house, and we're going to kind of continue this trend throughout the episode. There is something interesting about this device, and before I tell you that, I want to once again mention that everybody has a different use case about what they're going to do with a radio, what they're going to do with a Mesh-tastic node, and what they're going to do with their pew-pew. And at the end of the day, all your use cases are going to help dictate what radio you buy. Are you looking for a weatherproof radio that's going to be good for hiking? Are you looking for something that doesn't require a cell phone? If you don't ever want to use a cell phone, the LilyGo T-Deck Plus is a good start to being able to fully utilize Mesh-tastic off-grid. Regardless, you could have your cell phone data turned off and just have Bluetooth enabled to sync to your actual node. But some people don't want to do that. They want to be completely off-grid. And this would be like your start, because through here you could do everything you ever wanted to do. You could send messages utilizing the keyboard. You could even send out your location with a series of shortcuts that the LilyGo T-Deck uses, such as Alt-C to put you in a function mode, and then hitting Q to beacon or ping your location. It's nice to know that this could be used as a standalone device. Although there are some bugs, which I'll talk about in a moment, I could still pretty much get away with sending things on the long, fast channel, for example, and sending a hello. It will say sending, and it appears that it sends just fine, which is great. It was delivered to somebody unknown. So somewhere in the mesh world now is a hello. And of course, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find Dude's G2, which is the home unit, and we're going to run a trace route to it just to see how good the signal is to the G2. In the vehicle here, of course, we're at about a 4.25 or 5 dB signal to noise ratio, which is it's great. And then our RSSI is negative 88 dBm. So far we have a really good signal to Dude's G2. And the T-Deck Plus is essentially the same thing as the T-Deck, minus the fact that it's already built, it has built-in GPS, it's ready to go. And one of the things that is kind of different is it doesn't have an antenna, an external antenna port. Instead, what T-Deck did with the Plus is they have a built-in antenna inside of the case, but all you have to do is take a couple of screws out of the case, disassemble the case, remove that antenna that's built into the device, and add some kind of external antenna. And it was really easy because there's these little holes that are here that you could punch out. And that's what I did here with this SMA. Now I probably need to get a little bit of a spacer. But the reason I did this is when I first got the T-Deck Plus, it had really bad range. I mean, walking around the neighborhood, I would see the signal starting to degrade. And I just kind of thought, well, if I'm going to use this at all, it is nice to have no antenna showing, but it's also nicer to have the ability to be able to communicate with people. But one of my other observations about the T-Deck Plus was there was this really horrible reset button on the side of the radio. It protruded out of this spot that is now a hole or ingression. And every time I would put it in my pocket or put it up in here, I mean, it would reset the whole device. But also, if I want to do things in more depth, like trace routes, and maybe select a certain user that I haven't recently heard, I could still switch back to the phone if I want to. Although, I had some problems with that, and I want to explain those problems now as we go into maybe some of the issues with the T-Deck. As you can see here, it uses a keyboard, it uses LoRa, it uses GPS, and it has an LCD screen. My first observation while plugging this in or turning this on was that GPS didn't work, and one of the things that was required for me to do was to go into a computer and plug this in, go on to the Meshtastic client software, and update the GPS pins. Specifically, pin 44 and 43 needed to be updated under the GPS section. GPS was working after that, and I was really happy. As you can see here, I had 12 satellites, which is great. But there was another problem at this point, and the next problem that I had is there was an older firmware version on here. Since we're talking a little bit about firmware, we could talk about the new fancy UI, which I did put on this device. All I had to do was plug this into the computer, make sure the drivers were installed in the computer, and I installed fancy UI, which completely, to me, was unusable. It has a lot of potential and promise, but I've heard that line before, and it doesn't make it good at the moment. Fancy UI for me kept freezing up, and it just, like I said, it wasn't reliable enough for me to use. I would scroll through the trackball, and I would sometimes have to wait 5-10 seconds for it to finish responding. So I just went back to the version 2.5 without the fancy user interface. What you might hear me doing is complaining a lot, and please don't consider that the case, because what I'm actually trying to show you is there is slow development into a more friendly, more approachable user interface, which will make this more appealing to the general public. So all of a sudden you go to this completely usable user interface, just not very visually appealing, and you start to upgrade to a more developed user interface, which is slowly being developed, and they're working out bugs so that it could be perfected in the next version and the next version. And soon down the road, it'll actually be a really nice thing. But this user interface works as it is. I got it to work as I wanted it to with Bluetooth capability. I made these couple of mods, which for 100% reasoning, I think that anybody who gets the T-Deck Plus is probably gonna wanna do this mod. You know, what else could I tell you about this? It utilizes USB-C to not only transfer data to the device or from the device, but also to charge the device. And speaking about charging the device, it's a 2 amp hour, 2000 milliamp hour battery. And as you can see, there is built-in GPS. One of the cool features is you could basically follow along to where the individual might be in a general area by following the little arrow that will be on screen. Right here it's showing true north this way. One of the things that I also really want to point out that I liked about this device, because I do see a lot of potential in it continuing to grow, is like, for example, I have this camera tripod here, and on the back of the device I could actually screw in camera accessories onto here. I find this to be really cool. In fact, if you have this camera accessory on here, and maybe you have a large telescoping pole, like a gig could do 25-foot carbon fiber mast, you could put this in the air 25 feet, and you could have it held on by just these tripod legs that are bendable. Today I've traveled west out of my location to basically see if I can get signal out here. And one of the reasons I did so is not only do I have the G2 now at the house, but I also have a G2 one town away, about 100 feet on a tower. So we're gonna see if we can't maybe make contact with those. Of course, we're talking about, yes, again, 900 megahertz, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but when we're talking about 900 megahertz, we're talking about line of sight or near line of sight technology. So everything is a factor between trees or shrubbery, and even being inside a vehicle could add attenuation to our signal that we're trying to contact. I was able to not hit directly Dude's G2, which is just down the road, but I was able to hit Dude's G2 at the Arcom building, which is one town over. And even then, the signal strength is a lot less than I would like it to be. It's a negative 9.25 dB and an RSSI of negative 115. It's a bad signal. In fact, you would probably at that point have a very difficult time reliably communicating between both of the units. I'd like to finish today, and I want to leave you with two thoughts, if you will, right? If you're buying your first Meshtastic device, whatever it might be, I'm not telling you to go out and buy any of these. I'm not telling you to go out to buy this or 25 of the other ones that I have around here. But if you're going out to buy one mesh unit, I would consider buying two mesh units. And let me explain myself just a little bit in case you're new into mesh like I am. It's okay. Let's say you get to your house, you only have one mesh unit, and all of a sudden you're trying to see if there's anybody out there in the world, and you're scrolling through and you don't see anybody pop up or where they're located. Well, that's kind of a bummer. Mesh doesn't work. Sometimes it takes a while for these things to propagate, but also maybe you need to start building your own network, and the best way to do that is to have two units. Leave one at home on a 2-story window sill, and basically at that point, drive around town and start to do a site survey and see where can I hit this device, or rather this device, with this device while I'm out on the street. You know, maybe you could hit it over in this part of town and this part of town, but maybe you can't get it in this part of town, so you want to learn how you could extend this out. And you start building your mesh network up with just two devices, sending a trace route back and forth to the two of them. Or if you have somebody at home with this device, send them a text message. Make sure you can communicate. This accomplishes two things. This accomplishes, one, knowing what your range coverage is, but two, becoming more familiar with utilizing the device than you may have been 20 minutes ago or 30 minutes ago or 4 days ago. And then when time comes and you start to decide to build out your network more, or you've convinced other people to help you build out the network, you'll know where some of the weak spots are in town. So maybe you could focus your efforts on setting up other nodes, getting nodes on towers or getting nodes in strategic locations in your area for whatever you're trying to do. But without having two nodes, you'll never know what the distances are. And hey, maybe while you're mobile with this node or whatever node it is, you start to pick up other nodes around town, and now you know where you want to try to concentrate your efforts of building or bridging a gap. I should mention that I'm at the western point of town. It's a high point in the area. The problem is there is a lot of shrubbery and trees that are to the east of me and the north of me, which is the general direction of both my G2 station or station G2 at home, as well as the station G2 that's on the RCOM building. But even with those shrubberies and those obstructions, of course this will change as the seasons come on, I was still able to make contact to both of the units. Dude's G2 at RCOM is negative 3.25 dB on the signal to noise ratio, with the RSSI being negative 110. And the signal noise ratio at Dude's G2, which is closer to me, is negative 6 dB with an RSSI of negative 112 dB. And that's kind of good to know now that I've extended out my communications, actually the whole mesh network's communications, at least to the other side of our town now. All right, you're gonna have to forgive me for the rain and the thunder if you hear it, but I just turned this on and I want to reevaluate the fancy UI. The reason I want to reevaluate it is, let's be real, sometimes things just don't install correctly, or maybe we see problems and it sways our opinion one way or another. Regardless, I re-downloaded the fancy UI, and I really want to give credit to the developers who are working hard on this, and I don't want to seem like I'm ungrateful, because they're doing a great job and they're normal dudes just like most of us. You get to the cool little screen here for the Meshtastic fancy UI, and it gives you a list of things that are already available, such as your messages, how many nodes are available, the current UTC time, the frequency you're on, if you have a Wi-Fi signal, and you can continue to scroll down. Now, I'm trying to scroll down now, and it might not be completely apparent, but there is a little blue highlight or icon surrounding whatever option I'm set to. And if I go down to something like sound, I could then change the sound only, banner and sound. I will say that just even a couple of moments ago, when I clicked that the first time from sound over to banner and sound, there was a good 20-second freeze where nothing was happening. I couldn't scroll up or down. And that's just probably part of the process of this being an alpha release and not really technically available to the public yet. You know, it's still in demo purposes. If you continue to scroll down, you'll see things like your GPS coordinates as well as some other options. The other thing that happens if you scroll all the way up or all the way down, eventually you'll see your little blue highlight go under something like house. And if I scroll down now, it goes under this little icon here, which is a list of my channels, I believe. I could select it and it says group channels. Okay, one thing I noticed is no matter where I'm at, I'm going to scroll up here to get back over here. And now, you know, I'm on home because my blue arrow is under that. And when I select it, it shows nodes. And what I'm trying to say is the UI is created in a way where whatever is highlighted below that is what you're selecting. So blue was highlighted under the house. I got a new message. Let's check that out. I'm highlighted above the little chat icon. I'm going to hit enter and I'm going to go into long fast. And then there's everybody saying, good morning, it's storming. Good morning, Mesh. Sorry to hear you guys, you know, whatever. Basically, we're seeing a bunch of text messages at this point. And I'm going to go back into the home icon. Which you can't really see it highlighted in blue up here, but we're going to disable that sound because that is annoying. So we're going to basically have a banner pop up like you saw a moment ago whenever we get a message. But I think that the sound really does serve a purpose as well. Let's say you have your kid has one of these and you're texting him and he's out playing baseball or something. He's going to hear that annoying beep, right? But even if we go under group channels, we can select our current channels and it would basically bring us into our chat box window. This is a really cool chat box, by the way. And I'll just tell everybody, good morning. Good morning. And people will be like, well, who is that guy? Anyway, I send it and it actually feels like a phone and the chat box is on a phone. So that's really cool. So here we are on the main screen. And if we scroll up, we see very faintly that we're highlighted over the map, but let's continue to scroll down. So now we're just above the gear icon and we're going to enter it. And this is where we could change settings like our modem presets if we're set to client. We now have a list of all these different nodes in our area, whereas before, and it's also really nice how well the nodes are laid out as well. So my initial observation on this device and how slow the interface was could have been user error, most likely. It could have been a combination that there's just still a couple of small bugs in here, but I did want to point out that that user interface is a lot nicer than I originally kind of mentioned in the beginning of the episode. And I wouldn't be doing a due diligence if I didn't come back and at least show it to you so you could maybe get a little bit excited. In fact, I'm a little bit more excited now about how well it is developing. And I think you got to see that as well too. So now I could easily use this. And there's only one other thing I want to mention, you know. So right now I'm just using this device as a standalone device. I think it's working fine and it's functional. Some people are going to want to use Bluetooth mode. And I would probably just mention one more time that you can't have Bluetooth mode enabled and use the fancy UI at the same time. So what would happen is you'd have to plug in your USB, go into the configuration settings, enable Bluetooth, and then when the device reboots, it would say something like Bluetooth pairing mode, and it would give you a code, but it will never allow you to go past that because now you're using your phone. And where that could be a hinder is if you were out in the field or let's say a concert. All of a sudden you have your phone at the concert, you're using it to text with your TDEC, you're using it to text on the cell phone networks. The cell phone goes down or it slows down dramatically because of the amount of people at the concert or the event. And then your cell phone dies. Now you're like, hey, no problem, I'll get a hold of my group by texting them, only to find out that you're still in Bluetooth mode. And as far as I could tell, but of course I've been wrong multiple times, as far as I could tell, I can't find a way to disable Bluetooth pairing mode without plugging it back into the computer. So, and I might be wrong about that one, but I am really impressed on my second observation about how cool the user interface is. And with that, I would like to thank you for watching this channel. Hopefully it at least helped you kind of come to an idea of what device you're looking for when it comes to Meshtastic. And I do want to thank the company AliExpress, who they sent me this device so that I could take a look at it. And I could really appreciate that because it does get kind of expensive to start. buying a lot of different stuff all the time. And I also want to thank my buddy in Guam who sent me a ton of Meshtastic devices. So with that, hey, thanks for watching the channel. I hope you enjoyed this one. Take care. Have a great 173.